1 out of every 10 entries actually gets accepted, and that's considered good.
Social media Nepo baby discourse aside, Sundance is for the big dogs now. Partly it's because it's much easier to make film.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Your Next Film podcast. I am your host, Zachary Koch.
And I'm your co-host, Matteo Guthrie.
And on this podcast, we talk about filmmaking, creativity, and we're going to help you make your next film.
For creators, by creators, baby.
Let's do it. So today's episode is about film festivals and whether or not they are worth it.
Yes and no also. No, not at all, but totally.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Great job.
Matteo and I have a lot to say on this topic. As people who have gone through the film festival scene, we have a lot of thoughts.
So just to start out, this is, for creators, by creators. Like, this is a podcast from the perspective of we're no longer like amateur student creators, right? We've made some films. We are now like solidly in we're not Francis Ford Coppola professional. We're not even, we haven't put out our first like studio feature even. We don't have that sort of, I don't have a script deal yet. Please buy my scripts.
They're very good.
Yeah, but like within that, a lot of the sort of hustle to get there is focused around the festival scene.
At least historically.
Historically, yes. But like a lot of the people trying to get there in our same position are going to festivals. They are submitting their films. They're not getting accepted. They are not winning things. And it's definitely a Sisyphean trial on just trying to like make it big.
You were saying earlier that it's a lot of effort with not a lot of reward.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reward, and I'll get into that now, I suppose. But for example, when I was a student, often all our festival entries were bankrolled by the school. This is my tuition is going towards this. And, schools get discounts sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. And there were student-specific festivals. But even, entering into just kind of general amateur festivals and indie festivals, Wes Anderson put in his, like, student film called Bottle Rocket into, I believe it was Sundance. Don't quote me on that. But he put it into some festivals, and it got in front of the right eyes, ending up being a Coppola affiliate, saw it, got him budget to actually produce Bottle Rocket, the film. And that really shot Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson into the limelight.
And that's been the story that we've been told time and time again, especially as people who have been to film school. Well,
you've been to film school. I'm a writing major, so.
But how often do you see that happening nowadays?
Nowadays, social media Nepo baby discourse aside, like Sundance is for the big dogs now. There are other festivals, but it's much harder to get recognized. And partly it's because it's much easier to make films. So a lot more very smart, talented people are pushing out stuff at the same rate or faster than you are. So like, how do you compete? And it's much more competitive now.
Right.
Which is why YouTube is actually such a great platform, as we've spoken on in previous episodes, for promoting yourself, because you're not spending hundreds of dollars on entries for festivals that you probably won't get into.
Yeah, at least in my experience, 1 out of every 10 entries actually gets accepted, and that's considered good. This problem isn't solved by just making better films and you'll get accepted more. That does seem to be the rate for a lot of people that are putting out really amazing things too. And I could just see how, as filmmaking has become more and more popular, that those acceptance rates are going down even more. So we're really speaking into this from a lot of different angles, but mainly coming from the year 2024, where things have changed a lot. Filmmaking has changed. Distribution has changed. The tech that we use to make these things has changed.
So the studio process for greenlighting films has changed.
This question of whether film festivals are not worth it, it's really coming from not a historical perspective, because historically Cannes and Sundance.
Cannes has been big forever, but Sundance, I wouldn't say easy to get into, but it was definitely a place you could get noticed, not where everybody who was getting noticed was already showing films.
Right. So, but it's worth approaching this topic not from the perspective of these festivals are for filmmakers historically relevant. The question is, are they relevant today, and whether you, young filmmaker, should spend your time with them?
In my opinion, if you're in college, if you're a student, if you are getting these entries bankrolled or however, there's definitely opportunities created for you. Will somebody who went to NYU beat you out? maybe, but at least there are opportunities there for you that are not there just for like the average amateur.
Yeah, and you might as well take advantage of them.
Yeah, if you're a 30-year-old and you know kind of in the middle like we are, it's harder. So like we'll dive into it. I'll start off with no, it's not worth it.
Okay. I'm going to say it is worth it.
Okay,
Only
cool.
because you said no.
Yeah, now we have a structure for the podcast. Come along on this journey with us.
You've kind of made a bit of an opening statement, but let's just reiterate your points about why you think it's not worth it.
So you're spending a lot of money. You might not get in. And then my big point is that there are benefits to it. I'm not saying that there's just no benefits at all, but the benefit to it is definitely reduced. There's not going to be some producer that comes out of the wings that says, I was waiting for, the next young hot thing and it's you, and we're going to put you in the Oscars this summer or whatever. Nobody's getting that sort of Cinderella deal unless their daddy is very, very rich already and can, make the right calls. Or if they were just born into talent, if they were born into like a family that did that. But without those connections, film festivals aren't the way you get those fantastic connections anymore.
Yeah. Well, in our last episode, we talked about how we're living in an age where exposure is just, easy. I mean, way more easy than it used to be. So with YouTube
it's so
and
much
stuff,
easier, and there's so much more white noise, and that translates to the festival circuit.
Yeah.
So personally, you are not don't attend a festival trying to like make sure this is your big break. Even if you win awards, and like that's great if you win awards and you can win awards, it's just not a viable way of like making it anymore, personally.
Yeah, I see what you're saying for sure.
And, Joel Haver made this point that he's like, music festivals, they pay the artists. Ticket sales pay for everything.
I remember this video. It was very good.
Like literally every other festival, people come to perform and then generally they'll make money. And the reason that there's like quality at these festivals is because like people will come for the quality, therefore they will pay quality candidates to come play. Mm-hmm. And that's the profit motive for them.
Yeah, with film festivals, you're paying to participate.
Yeah, I'm paying,
and you are the main attraction.
Thousands of dollars sometimes, in like cumulative fees just like, I don't know if I'm going to get in. And then when you do get in, like you paid to get in. I understand like how this came about, but it's still not exactly the best like motivator to get into these. If you're not like, oh yeah, I'm paying to be, published in a journal. I get that. Like the fee to like the entry fee to just make sure people don't flood you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you were to just enter, no fee or anything, and then get paid a little sum, the festival would definitely, even the smaller festivals, would be definitely more worth it for you because at least there would be like some sort of profit motive there.
There's definitely things about the business model that are suboptimal, let's just say.
Yeah, it's suboptimal, and it's at the point where you are now, kind of in between, the limbo between, mm-hmm. Having quote unquote broken into the industry and not. The payout is less than what you're actually putting into it, both financially and time-wise, and going to a bunch of these little festivals, because if you're not going to the festival, it becomes much less worth it.
Absolutely. And I would completely agree with you on that point, that if you're not actually going to attend the festivals that you're submitting to, don't submit. There's very little reason to do that. Best case scenario, you're going to get a little laurel to put on your thumbnail. Let's talk about why you should submit to film festivals and why they are still amazing, even in the year of our Lord, 2024. So reason number one is competition is not a bad thing. Your main point is that, yes, in submitting to festivals, it's a lot less likely that you are going to be successful in doing so, not just with the acceptance rate, but also if you do get accepted, and even if you are able to attend the festival, that it's a lot less likely that you're going to get a distribution deal or run into the right people. That's true. But competition is not a bad thing. Competition represents a healthy market. If there's a lot of competition, it means that there's a lot of demand for this sort of thing. And I think there's a lot of filmmakers that, they submit their films to YouTube. They upload to YouTube, they get a few hundred views, and that's really cool. But there's a demand that filmmakers see their films on the big screen. As filmmakers, we want to craft an experience, and throwing our film on YouTube is amazing. And Joel Haver has essentially made a career out of doing that. But I don't want my films to be viewed on a phone. I don't want them to be viewed on an iPad even though those are great devices, and I'm glad that they exist. And I'm glad that platforms like YouTube exist for that discoverability factor. Mm-hmm. But in an ideal world, you would see my films, our films, on the big screen. You and I went to a festival about a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Our last festival, where we showed 2 films actually, which was very fun. Bleeding Heart Routine and Choose a Wagon, which I will link in the description of this video. They're both films that we are very proud of.
We will call back to them actually quite a bit.
If you want to follow our journey, go watch our films.
There's a lot there, but as shorthand, Bleeding Heart Routine, Choose a Wagon.
Seeing Bleeding Heart Routine on the big screen, on one hand, was terrifying, because seeing it that close with that level of detail, I was like, oh my gosh, I would have done things a little differently. Same thing with Choose a Wagon. But it was so gratifying seeing my work displayed on a 60-foot screen in front of an audience of people and being able to hear their reactions while I was there. Especially with Choose a Wagon, I thought this film was funny, but it actually is funny. It's like the whole Bo Burnham Inside thing. Like, this would be the point in the special where you would laugh. Don't get that instant feedback.
Yeah.
And that's what the reality is for filmmakers who are uploading their films to YouTube. They don't get that feedback. They don't get that live.
No, there was a short I made in college. It was, as part of my media production training. And like, I love that script. It's one of my favorites still. I shot it. I ran sound for it. I ran everything. I was the skeleton crew, one man behind the camera, all the talent I could get in front of the camera that could volunteer for it. And the best part of that film is that it has one of my friends in it. And our friend group loves to just, like, usually like Christmases and Halloweens, just put it up on the big TV and like everybody watches it and everybody laughs at the same jokes every time because they like the film for what it is. And I appreciate them for that because they can just provide me that feedback. It feels like, and again, going to festivals and seeing like people react to your films, it feels like when I was in high school doing theater, being able to like almost pause for effect for different lines, because I could tell what was working and what wasn't.
Right.
And you get that like, yes, I did the thing and immediately people responded emotionally to it, and that's gratifying.
To play devil's advocate here, I think that you can get that by showing your films to your friends and family in your living room. Like, have showings for your films, even if they don't show up to film festivals.
And like, again, I'm saying this is, again, my argument against film festivals is post-COVID, you can and this may change further down the line, but post-COVID, you can just kind of rent a theater for pretty cheap. I recall like directly after COVID, when movie theaters were scrambling for any ounce of revenue, I knew people that would rent out the theater and just play like a Mario Kart on the big screen.
Yeah.
And that was like very fun, a little sad to see theaters so empty. But like, you can rent a theater and it's for the like, if you can get people to chip in, if there are people that actually want to see your film or films or whatever, you can probably break even compared to what you would be spending on film festivals.
My only counter argument to that is that with the film festival, you get the notoriety of having your film played in that festival. So yeah, you get a similar experience by inviting a bunch of friends and family, maybe even open it to the public and getting them into a theater that you rented out and you show your film. That's great. But why would you go through all the effort to do that for a 10-minute film? So there's the element of like, if you
I see your point.
If you have a feature film, maybe you can make an event out of that. If you have a short film, that's a harder sell. However, you could still do the same thing by showing it to your friends and family on a projector at someone's house, in your living room. Heck, do it outside. I've done that before. Somniac, the original Somniac.
The original
Were you
Somniac.
there for that?
I was not there for that.
Dude, it was an amazing night. We played the film in our backyard. This was Halloween night. And somehow word got around in the neighborhood. I don't know how this happened. I definitely didn't spread the word, but word got around that we were showing a film in our backyard. And we had 20, 30 neighbors show up, and we had a projector set up, and we showed the film, and we played through the whole thing. And everyone was like, we want to watch it again. So we played it twice. And that was my first film, man. And if I didn't have that one night where just a bunch of people showed up to my backyard and watched my film on a projector and asked to watch it again, and if I didn't have that engagement, that live engagement, I don't know if I would be a filmmaker today. I mean, that night really stuck with me, and it gave me the courage to keep making films.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, if you get into a festival and it's like the boost of creative juice you need to like see that, you get the validation. But especially from a student standpoint, you do this for an assignment or whatever, and you wrangle enough crew, and you yell at people for showing up late or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. you do it for an assignment, and then you finally get to show it at a festival as like your capstone or
That's
whatever.
your reward, man.
Yeah, it's hugely rewarding. But like where we are now, it's less rewarding.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever get over the feeling of seeing Bleeding Heart Routine on the big screen. 65 foot, 70-foot screen, however big it was. I got ahead of myself. Were you implying that it's less rewarding because we've done it several times before?
It's less rewarding, and if this comes from often like going to film festivals and putting your thing, we've done it a few times before, but it's also like I feel like we're more confident in our filmmaking than we were as high schoolers or even in college, and we really want more tangible results from filmmaking rather than just like, oh, I'm just happy to get it out, and we're always just happy to get it out. But as that goes on, especially as you try to put more production value into things, you start to feel like almost like your clock is ticking on yourself as a creative, that's a whole nother conversation, stagnation and etc. But when the film festival is doing less to benefit your career as a creative, that doesn't matter when you are a film student,
right?
And you're just like, it was great to see my student film up on the screen. You get nominated for best young creator, best new creator, and that impacts you in ways that just simply showing it to your class or showing it to your family don't. But as you start to travel further down that road, you're like, well, I'm not putting this into Cannes, I'm not putting this into Sundance, I'm not putting this into serious stuff. I'm putting it into still serious, but like local film festivals that we love. We highly support them, go to them when you can.
Yeah.
But you're starting to go like, I feel like I'm throwing my, my $150 entry just kind of into a money pit. And then like I get to show my thing on a big screen again, but like how many times am I going to do this before I start getting paid to have things on screen?
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from.
There might be a bit of impatience there. I don't know.
No, I mean, you're a filmmaker mid-career, or mid to earlier in their career. I could definitely see the argument that the professional benefits are just not there. Now, as someone who's starting out, it's so rewarding to do that, and you should do it.
Yeah, you should, 100%.
But also, don't forget that the end game for any filmmaker is to show their films in theaters. What if Scorsese was uploading his films to YouTube? That would be pretty dope. I would support that.
Have you seen Boxcar Bertha? It's like one
No.
of his first films. It's really good.
Is it on YouTube?
I saw it on Tubi TV.
Oh, okay,
which
cool.
is free and good.
So, but don't forget that as a filmmaker, your end game is literally to show your films on a big screen in a theater. I mean, that just goes with the art form. So doing something that it doesn't just resemble it, but is kind of the whole point of being a filmmaker.
I mean, there's that David Lynch quote about how like if you're watching it on your phone, you're doing it wrong. And film festivals are a very good way to do that. That isn't, organizing an entire event at some local theater.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that. I will say, do you want to touch on the networking?
Sure.
Because I know that is a benefit.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's not useful, but I have thoughts on it.
Okay, so you want me to say why networking is a good thing and
Yes.
how film festivals are good because they... Okay, we talked in episode 2 about how to find a film crew. It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Find willing people to help you out. Film festivals are bastions for filmmakers. It's where they all show up. I mean, there's no other event, there's no other place that you could go. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe if you've come up with one, please do.
I've got a bar on 23rd Street full of movie
Not the
freaks.
same. When the last festival we went to, there was a lot more filmmakers in any given room there than at this bar that, I sometimes visit and you frequently go to on Monday for their like movie night thing, which is fun. Also a great opportunity to network. Absolutely. Not discounting that. But is it better than going to a film festival? No.
Okay.
I just can't believe that that's the case.
In a perfect world, it would be. I'll say that.
For me, a lot of the people that I've met at film festivals, I'm not really talking to them regularly, and I don't think I've built up enough of a relationship to ask them to help out with projects or to even really volunteer to help out on theirs. And so on one hand, it's the best opportunity to network as a filmmaker. But the event's so short that maybe you don't have enough time to build rapport with these people. So the benefits are less. But what other opportunity are you going to have to meet strangers that eventually can become collaborators?
Yeah, my big argument is that networking is very good, and networking with people who are at the same level as you are, who also know, they know what they're doing, but they're not breaking into it, is obviously not as like thrilling as like, oh yeah, this producer loves your stuff and he's going to really fight for you, or you get an agent out of it or whatever. It's valuable to like network with those people, but like you said, it's a very like short time to network. Our block's on Thursday. Like I have to take off work on Thursday because I have, or even on a Friday, I have a real job.
Right. No, that's a great point, actually.
Eventually art puts food on the table, but it's not right now. So I have to do something to be able to afford these entries.
Right. And you have to take time away from that thing just to be able to show up.
And then there's affording the it's very resource intensive.
It's an investment. You are right that film festivals are very resource intensive. And when you only get into 1 out of 10, you don't get refunded for your submission fee.
No, you don't.
You got to pay your submission fee, and then that money just disappears and you'll never get it back, whether you get accepted or not. And that can be difficult for a filmmaker starting out. But when you go into it with that mindset, and let's also remember that a lot of local smaller film festivals, the ones that I am definitely trying to promote here because I think that they're so useful to have at the start of your filmmaking journey, they also aren't that expensive. And a lot of the times they do give you discounts. So you're thinking $10, $20 per entry. You can get 10 entries. You're not guaranteed, but likely to get into at least one of those. So you're only $100 into the whole, 200 max. And you get this amazing experience where you have an opportunity to network. You get the gratification of seeing your film on the big screen. And that's kind of the whole point of being a filmmaker in the first place, is having your film on the big screen. So I definitely see a place for film festivals, even in 2024.
I guess really here, you have to do a cost benefit analysis.
For sure. And I completely agree with you that the professional benefits aren't there in the way they used to be.
If the networking is worth it, there's a guy I've networked with who he won Dead Center, which is a big deal. At the same time, there are other people that I've met there that maybe if we'd gone to 10 more festivals and we could have afforded the time to do it, that we would have like really
That is the big thing, yeah.
There is a definite downside to it that there didn't used to be.
Yeah.
This shouldn't dissuade you from ever submitting to a festival.
Well, and here's the thing. It's not an all or nothing thing. You don't either put all of your effort as a filmmaker into submitting to festivals or none at all. Like with everything, like in our last episode about physical media and how that can supplement you uploading to YouTube from a money perspective, but also it is. And I think film festivals are a part of that ecosystem.
I'll take that.
Look, in summary,
there's
a lot of benefits. I do not regret going to the festivals I've been to.
Me either.
But at the same time, do we really plan on going to anytime soon? I mean, not as much.
No.
I mean, that was a focus for us a couple years ago, and now we're doing other things, and that's okay. We've done it. We don't regret it, but we're also not doing it now. That's not going to be a thing forever, probably, but in this season, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis, like you were saying.
Whenever we come out with something that we think is a real festival winner, like we'll probably submit again.
It has to get seen,
because we just want our stuff to be seen. But without that, I guess my big fantasy I was sold, whatever you want to call it, was that you put into festivals and it would get in front of the right eyes, and the right eyes could give you a lot of benefit. And we haven't seen that professional benefit from festivals. You do have to go into it with basically like going gambling, where you're like, I'm willing to lose this money for what this gets me, which is an experience, and not a tangible benefit.
And I think it's productive to think of it as an investment. But I think your point about doing that cost-benefit analysis is very critical, because you have to evaluate your situation, where you're at with life, and what's going to be the most beneficial thing for you. There's benefits to film festivals. There's definitely cons to film festivals. Your money might be better invested into another short film project instead of spending, $200 could be a location. It could be a bunch of props. It could be a bunch of
crafty
costumes.
It could be crafty. I've spent plenty of money on crafty.
So figure out what you're willing to spend and whether it's worth it to spend it in another area. But don't discount film festivals. I think there's definitely a place for them. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Your Next Film podcast. I hope you got something out of it. I have been your host, Zachary Koch, your media professional, helping you to make your next film. And with me today, as always, has been
Matteo Guthrie, your favorite writer. That's a little egotistical.
It is a little egotistical, but if you read his scripts, it would be true.
Okay. Your next favorite writer for your next film.